Well, well, well. Look at us. Look at us. Right back where we started almost a full year ago, back in the live stream. Hello. How's it going, everyone? I see a lot of familiar names. Daybug or Daybug. Dayswallower, hello, hello. Kaylee Dragonfly, first one in the chat. Wolfie, hello. Young Legend, Lantern Valley, glad to be in the background. Glad to be here. Frey, it's nice seeing you. Look at us, everyone. Look at us. Zinderfall, hello, hello. Zinderfall, were you here for the last live stream we did? I feel like I saw your name pop up in a chat here in a live stream, and then I saw you in the Discord. Help me remember. Mina, hello, hello. We also got Aurora. I'm gonna have to call you Aurora. It's Shavam this side. Ah, man, I'm trying. Bouncing about. Well, everyone, hello, Helljumper, hello, hello. It is so nice to see you again. Also very exciting, we're inching closer and closer every day to November. I'm going to be working hard in November, doing my best. No promises yet, but I'm really trying to make sure that that Novella November happens again. I'm excited. I'm still working on my story from Novella November, but we're getting close. William, hello. Hello. All right. Let me tell you what we got going on today. Let me tell you what's going on. So, is anyone here familiar with the author Mark Lawrence? Mark Lawrence. To give you a sort of bibliography, do people do that? Is that the list of books you've written? Mark Lawrence is, first off, a very influential author, but maybe not for the reasons you're familiar with. And I'm actually thrilled to hear you say you don't know who Mark Lawrence is. Mark Lawrence writes a lot of I don't know if I would call it grimdark fantasy. Maybe dark fantasy is a good word for it. Here, I'll share my screen so you can see. I think his most popular series is either The Book That Wouldn't Burn, Prince of Thorns, and the following series. But basically a successful, prolific fantasy author. But that is not why Mark Lawrence is so influential. Mark Lawrence runs his blog. And in his blog, he's done a couple really cool things. Number one, every year he highlights some self-published indie authors who have written books that he's found to be remarkable and puts those authors and their works in the spotlight. And there have been many times where the celebration of these works has given people a lot of attention, enough attention so that they can have careers of their own. Awesome. Giving back to that sort of indie self-published community, even when you are an established author, that's a great thing. But a couple years ago, Mark Lawrence said, all right, I see AI. AI is happening. Of course, now we're tired talking about it. AI is happening. I wonder, this was I think 2 years ago, Mark Lawrence said, I wonder if I can gather some writing samples from some of my prolific and talented author friends and generate some AI writing and share this in a blind study where anyone could come in. Would people be able to tell which writing was done by a human, which writing was done by an AI? That was 2 years ago. This past weekend, he did the experiment again. And so the plan today, I'll be sharing this link with you on Mark Lawrence's blog. We're going to go through and make some of our own guesses and then look at the results. These are all very short works. I think they're about 300 to 350 words. So it shouldn't take too long. But I think we have about 8 writing samples. As soon as I saw that he did this, I told myself I couldn't read any further. So I'm going in blind with you. But if you would like to do this with us and make your own guesses, either in the chat or with the link that I share, we can go through this and then look at the results together and see exactly how screwed we are. So let me share this link in the chat. Give me 1 second to do that. And there you go. It is now in the chat. Feel free to click that link and hop on over to the blog. And if you're just listening along, I'm going to read some of these out loud. You can make your own decisions. But first, let's talk about a couple ground rules. All right. If we scroll down here, these are all flash fiction. So you have to do a lot of heavy lifting with your writing in just a couple words. All right. And what we are not trying to do is to look for em dashes. We're not trying to look for formatting that says this is AI. We are looking for the actual writing. Now, I think that there are still some tells in AI writing that pop out. And sometimes to me, it comes as like kind of strange word choices. Maybe sometimes it's using descriptors that sound interesting, but I feel like they don't mean much. That's something that I'm going to be looking out for. I'd love to hear if you have your own sort of metric you're going to be judging these by. Let me know in the chat. Marcos, hello. So let's scroll down here and look at the first bits of writing. Below are 8 pieces of flash fiction. All of them are roughly 350 words. All of them were written to the prompt, write a piece of fiction based on a demon. That's it. You could take it any way that you wanted, in any setting, any genre, as long as it came from the prompt, a demon. For the AI, there was additional very brief suggestions concerning tone and or setting to generate variety. An example might be make it romantic and set it on a cliff top. Mark Lawrence says, I prompted the AI to use rude words, em dashes and such on occasion in some of the pieces. And if you were going to decide based on bad language or grammar quirks, then we've already lost. Please base your selection on the quality of writing and your belief that a human was behind the keyboard. All that being said, we're going to read through the first one. And then I think we are going to rate that story. And then I think we are going to, if I remember correctly, decide yes or no, was it AI? So there's 2 decisions to be made here. So scrolling down, after this, we will have a look at the results as well. So you'll be able to see exactly how right or wrong you were. Let me pull up a little notepad here to keep track of what we decide. I don't know if it does it for us. I'll have a little notepad just to say, like, story 1, we felt this way. Story 2, we felt this way. And then when we look at the results, we'll know. All right. Before I go on, let me ask you, how are the sounds? Is my microphone blowing out? Is the background music too low, too loud? Let me know before I sit over here and read for 25 minutes. I would appreciate it. Thank you. All good to me. Young Legend, that's all I need. Comms are stable. Hell Jumper. Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, cool. So let's get started with story 1. We got just a couple paragraphs here. All flash fiction. Remember, we're not going to be here for too long. Story 1. I'll read it out loud. You can follow on screen. You can follow on your own. William says, humans use em dashes more than AI. I've started to use em dashes more. Ever since I think the last author that I read used em dashes, and I was like, damn, these are useful. I think that was Steven Erikson of Malazan. M-Crew. Let's go. All right, story 1. Mathen was born to the river folk, rooted on an island because stories claimed a curse kept the demons from walking across water. None questioned their lot. Life on the riverbanks passed them by in barges and the toy-sized plods of beasts and wagons. Boatmen came and went, their goods bartered for fish the men netted on the foot in the shallows. Mathen and his kin lived in tranquility, isolated by a settled tradition. Winters were mild, the swift current too deep to freeze solid. Lamentable drownings took the brash youngsters who strayed onto the treacherous ice. At 10 years of age, loudly fractious, Mathen belittled the grandam's belief. Demons, he smirked with a swagger, do such terrors even exist? Rumor suggested the mainland villagers shared his dismissive contempt. Children's tales whispered long nights by the hearth were but myth, unsubstantiated by a living witness. When merchants desired a trestle bridge, joining both shores by the way of the island to access the roadway on the far side, their proposal sparked interest. The old wives muttered, fearful of change, yet fabled threats paled before the headier promise of wealth. Grown strapping in his discontent, Mathen clamored for better prospects than tedious fishing, waist deep in fast water. A plank bridge was built during summer, with Mathen driving the nails alongside the whistling laborers who secured the last span. A village festival welcomed the first eager islanders who stepped onto the riverbank with dry feet. The young mingled, dancing and feasting by roaring bonfires into the night. Left behind, the old wives barred their doors and huddled in trembling dread. Tipsy with the celebrants on the mainland, Mathen reeled to the sharp pang of ravenous hunger. When his hands sprouted talons and bestial scales, he watched the bold friends who had trodden the bridge alongside him grow spiked tails, then forked tongues, vicious fangs, and sharp teeth. Screams greeted the tearing of human flesh, soon silenced by the hideous shredding of organs. Thus, demons enticed to walk over the water escaped the restraint meant to safeguard the innocent from their ungodly predation. Woo! All right. First story. Now, here's the thing. There are word choices here I wouldn't write, but that doesn't mean someone else wouldn't write them. You know what I mean? Bo says, Malazan mentioned. She's a beast. She's a beast. William says, person. Mina says, sounds human to me. Kit says, lamentable drowning sounds sus. Nothing stands out as AI. Bray says, I voted AI. Yeah, you know, anything that we determine here, it's always going to be subtle because it's getting so much better. Things I would look for to make sure that, you know, that this feels like a person. I feel like a person does maybe a better job in like only mentioning the necessary parts of something like the setting. So like one of the things that stood out to me was the fact that when the merchants desired a trestle bridge joining both shores by the way of the island to access the roadway on the far side, the proposal sparked interest. I don't know. I'm like, doesn't matter that we know there's a road on the other side. Would it be any different if we just said we're building a bridge? Human but needs editing. Dayswaller, they do say in here that these are not meant to, well, I don't say if they should mean. These do not represent the full abilities of the author. I guess that's maybe a nice way to put it. Same as Kit, the pros are purple. I guess I'd say human. I think my final guess is with you, but things like fractious, I don't know too many people that would use fractious. Lamentable drownings, I can get behind. I feel like I could put those two words together and they would make sense. Who's got the definition for fractious? Loudly fractious as well. I'm going to say human. I'm going to say human. I like this turn of phrase, toy-sized plod of beasts and wagons. I guess the question is, do I like it? And does AI know I like it? All right. Was it AI? We're going to say human. Vote. How good was it? We have a scale of 1 to 5. I think I remember seeing 5 as the best, just to double check. 5 is the best. I'd put this at probably like a 2.8. I'll round up to 3. Frey says the paragraphs were all kind of about different things. I had hopes that a human would tell it differently. It sounds like you were hoping maybe a human would link similar thoughts together, maybe in a more easy to follow way. Frey. William says odd words aren't as available to the LLM. Fractious and lamentable are unusual. Glad to know that I'm not the only one being over here like, what the hell's fractious mean? And I'm the one who has to read it live, going in blind in front of 220 people. Actually 22. I just said that for the recording later when it's harder to tell. All right, so we said story 1 on my notes I'm going to put over here. We rated it a 2 out of 5 and human. Nice. Let's keep going. Causing division between people. I think that there's like 6 other words I would go to before I would land on fractious. Okay. All right. Story 2. Keep story 1 fresh in mind. Story 2 is where we actually get to start making comparisons. You know, we might read another story and be like, oh, well, that changes everything. If I knew it could be like this, then I would have voted story 1 was AI all along. I'm just being fractious. Story 2. The warrior archangel banished his sword and swept into the cell. It was an almost featureless white space that appeared to have no limit in any direction except down. Down was a white marble floor. The creature in the space was large and hideous, with features disfigured by, Jesus Christ, suppurating wounds, a bloated body, a huge, and of course, cloven hooves at the end of his machine. You guys seeing this? TOS. As the warrior angel entered, the demon looked up, grimaced, and defecated. Hello, my mother in the chat. Hello. Tell me your name, prisoner, the angel said. Sod off, the demon replied. The angel conjured a chair and sat in it, their magnificent white wings elegantly managed, folding perfectly as if to contrast the loosely muddled red bat wings of the demon, which sweated a yellow bile. Have you been unfairly treated, prisoner? The angel asked. The demon let loose a long fart. What is happening in this story? And then said, how do you guys do it? There's a constant breeze, perfumed if you so desire. The angels spread their beautiful hands. We can give you anything you like, you know. Anything. Look, you elegant fascist. Give me freedom. Freedom to do anything that I want. Based. The angel leaned back. Isn't that what got you into trouble in the first place, brother? They asked gently. The demon leaned over and licked its rear end clean. Oh, Jesus Christ. And then looked up, its damaged features radiating annoyance. If you folks make enough rules, eventually someone's going to get their knickers in a knot, aren't they? Based. Arson, murder, slavery, the angel said, intolerable. Hypocrisy, self-righteous BS, endless propaganda, the demon laughed. That's people. That's people. Those are humans misunderstand. The angel suddenly sat up, realizing they would be drawn into discourse with a demon. The demon stretched itself and for a moment had the height and posture of the angel, if in an uglier form. I am a rebel angel. It's what I do. I rebel. Deal with it. So if you missed the earlier part, Mark Lawrence did prompt the AI to use rude words so that couldn't be just an easy tell. So this is too gross to be AI, J Sam says. At the same time, all I was thinking was, I feel like a human would have more of a limit between the kind of grossness they would write, and an AI, if prompted to use rude words, would only go all in. So much out-of-pocket stuff. Here's something I'm thinking, though. There are a few little excerpts I've read in that, AI generated. And one of the tells I've kind of picked up in is that the story tends to be maybe more well-contained than a human typically creates, specifically with flash fiction, because what we're talking about here is 350 words, and not only do we have a pretty strong introduction, we have all the discourse in the middle, and then we have a very sudden twist right here, and then a one paragraph conclusion that also has the point of the story. They are not that different. That's something that, if I go back to the first story, I felt like this one didn't really have a twist. And in the AI writing that I've read that's short form like this, I feel like AI is almost primed to say, I have this many words, here's where the twist should happen, here's where the conclusion should happen, here's my strong intro. I feel like that tight package is more AI than human. William says, if the AI was instructed to use curse words, that's the kind of cursing AI would generally pick first. I kind of, if I was a human writing this, at one point, I don't know, somewhere around here, I would have been like, mission accomplished. I used the rude words, like, let's actually tell the story. And I feel like this one with AI was like, I was prompted to use rude words. I'm going to make sure there's at least one in every paragraph. So my guess is AI. I'd love to hear what you think. I'm also putting this at a 2 out of 5, in my own opinion. This one's interesting, though, because Day Swallower says AI or someone pretending to be AI. I think everyone participating in here is giving a genuine effort. Now, something that's interesting about this story, and something that makes me consider maybe it's human, is I don't know if an AI would paint themselves into a corner and completely remove everything about the setting for their story. Because this story takes place, the only mention of any sort of setting is the fact that we are in a pure white infinite room. And I think an AI would be like, well, a story also needs to be represented by a strong world building background. So let me also try to do some world building in this story. Maybe that's a human choice. Wolfie says, it's good being here. It's already past midnight and I have to wake up in 4 hours. Wolfie, thank you for tuning in. Isabel says, I don't know, like the fact that there isn't subtext, even if it's rudimentary, doesn't feel super AI. This is a tough one. I feel like this is fractious, you know, between us all. We got some people saying feels weird, must be AI. We have other people saying too weird to be AI. I'm shocked, and offended. All right. That's a tough one. Let me put down in our notes. Story 2. I said 2 out of 5. I could be convinced to go down to 1 out of 5. And I said this one was AI, but general consensus says human? Your boy is not going to be able to spell consensus correctly first try. It's too heavy-handed with themes to be human. Oh. You know, if I remember right, there was also mention up here No, I was gonna say I wonder if some of the authors chosen were earlier in their career, but it seems like every author chosen was pretty already established. So can't chalk it up to amateur writing. Story number 3. Let's keep moving. Oh god. So I voted on that one AI, but I felt like the group voted human. Your interpretation may vary. All right, something else I'm going to be looking for next is going to be dialogue tags. This is something that I feel like has also been a big, not a tell of AI, but just a big discourse in the writing space. Because wouldn't conventional writing wisdom, which I feel like AI would be following, only use said, asked, and avoid something like an action tag or something? Something to keep in mind. All right, story 3. The demon didn't knock. It tore the chapel doors off their hinges and flung them into the pews. Father Aldrich barely had time to drop his rosary before the beast was on him. 8 feet tall, skin like charred leather, claws like sickles. It grinned, steaming breath curling from its fangs. I like this already. I'm already feeling human, and I know it's premature. Let's keep going. Oh no, Aldrich whispered. You're real. The demon laughed, a horrible sound like bones grinding under iron. God stopped listening. Time to pay for all the prayers you wasted. Aldrich pulled the blade from beneath the altar. Not blessed, just sharp. That's a good turn of phrase right there. That's a good turn of phrase. Then come take your tithe, bastard. Oh, I love it. They clashed in a blur of claws and steel. Pews shattered, statues wept blood. Aldrich took a slash across the chest, but drove his dagger into the demon's thigh, twisting hard. The thing roared and slammed him against the wall, cracking stone and ribs alike. You think pain scares me? Aldrich coughed blood in his beard. I've seen worse in confession. A little cheesy, okay. The demon snarled and lunged. He ducked, barely, shoved a candle holder through its eye. Where'd we get a candle holder? A hint, maybe? It howled, staggering back, but didn't fall. Aldrich stumbled to the altar, ripped open the floorboards. Uh-oh, guys. Aldrich's turning into a superhero. Justin, hello. Ripped open the floorboards. A second blade, silver this time, stolen from a hunter who never made it out of the woods. Maybe blessed, maybe not. Uh-oh, guys. This is pretty reminiscent to Not Blessed, Just Sharp. I feel like a human wouldn't go back to the well that fast. But an AI being told to write something stylistic. Uh-oh. Let's keep going. You're just a creature, he growled, not a curse. You bleed. I feast on souls. The demon hissed. Then choke on mine. That's pretty good. Aldrich said and charged. Steel met sinew, flesh burned, blood splashed across broken icons. They fell together. When the villagers arrived, the chapel was a ruin. Smoke curled from its windows. Inside, they found Father Aldrich slumped atop a dead monster, its skull split wide, holy symbols scorched into its chest. The priest's heart had stopped. His hand still clutched the blade. On the wall behind him, scrawled in ashen blood, "Don't pray, fight." Woo! What a roller coaster. Hold on. At the beginning, I was like, this feels pretty human. At the middle, I was like, uh-oh, I'm seeing some repeated kind of things here. And that feels like AI. There were some... Here's the thing. Zinderfall says word choices. One of the things that stood out to me the most was that all of this beginning felt very feasible to write. It felt like it was just like a modern action prose. It wasn't trying to do a lot of heavy lifting. You know, the word charred leather, you could pull that out of your hat at any point in a fantasy novel and it would work really well. Claws like sickles, I like that. Curved blades, great imagery, I can dig it. All of that felt very like, you know, all right. I was going to say very Brandon Sanderson. What I mean by that is approachable for the reader and useful for the author. I hope that makes sense. All right, we're seeing Young Legend says, I would say AI. Kaylee says, now I think it's AI, which is wild because it felt very human. So I'm saying a roller coaster. Isabel says, I don't know. I think seeing something reminiscent of other work is indicative of AI. It's an interesting take. Interesting take. I see where you're coming from. Zenderfall says, keep in mind some AI are better at writing than others. They even have their own styles, I think. I've heard that. I liked this dialogue here. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think it's the most creative or original. I just thought it was fun. It kind of feels like you're reading some Jim Butcher, like that kind of prose. Now, here's something that I think is maybe the biggest red flag, and I want to know what your interpretation of this is. Who here remembers Chekhov's gun? What was Chekhov's gun? Of course we remember Chekhov's gun. If you're going to use a gun, you need to introduce it earlier, and vice versa. If you introduce this detail like this kind of, you know, a gun early on. Wait, what did I say? Did I say Chekhov's gun or did I say something else? Now I meant Chekhov's gun. Okay. If there's a gun in the story, you had to use it. But also, vice versa, if you're going to be using a gun in the story at the end, you need to make sure it's present somewhere else so it doesn't come out of nowhere. You don't always think about it going both ways, but it does. And yet, in the middle of the story, with no sort of preparation, our boy here, Father Aldrich, shoves a candle holder through the demon's eye. If I was writing this, I would want to somehow mention the fact, like, I see where it's coming from, right? We're slammed against the wall, cracking stone and ribs alike. That's where I assume the candle holder or sconce or something comes across, right? That's where we come across it. But it's kind of a big moment in the story to not have any mention before. That's my guess. To me, that's an interesting choice. Also, Aldrich stumbled to the altar and ripped open the floorboards. Have you ever tried to rip open any piece of nailed down wood? Am I crazy? I think there's, I don't know. Some of those choices feel strange to me. Mina says, these are all common words, which feels kind of statistical. Granted, some writers will also do this. That's a very good point. William clarifies Catholic Church. Candlesticks are freestanding at the altar. Did not know that. Good to know. Good info. Good intel. Aldrich was stronger than one would expect a non-combatant priest to be, is kind of what I'm saying. I'm going to say, I think I'm going to land on AI. But this one is really hard. This one was really hard. I also thought this was a way better story than our other two. But maybe that's because it was zoomed in. Our first story was told over a longer period of time. Our second story was a one single interaction in a kind of a strange way. I like this. I'll put it at 3 stars. But like a better 3 stars than what we saw before. Story 3. It got a 3 out of 5. And AI. I think that's what I said. All right, next one. Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. We're halfway there. Oh, brother. Dreln. Here we go. Story 4. The village of Dreln clung to the edge of the ash-black cliffs, where the old tale said a demon had been chained since before men learned fire. Most villagers dismissed it as superstition, though none ventured near on moonless nights. I like the opening paragraph. Taran, the miller's apprentice, knew the voice was real. He had heard it in his dreams, low and slick, whispering promises that made his skin prickle. On the last night of autumn, he followed it into a cave yawning in the cliff face. Inside, the air reeked of rot and hot metal. The torchlight caught on chains wrapped around something tall, red-skinned, and crowned with curling horns. Gold eyes burned in the dark. You came, it said, lips curling back from teeth like needles. I wanted to see if the stories were true, Taran said. They are, the demon purred. I will give you more than truth. Strength, riches, women. I'm skipping that next line. Men too, if you crave them. Okay, progressive. Heat flushed Taran's cheeks, and what do you want in return? Break my chains, and I will be yours to command. Every rival will crawl. Every night you will bury yourself in flesh until the bed breaks beneath you. The thought was a fire in Taran's head. His hand went to the lock, trembling. The iron hissed at his touch. The chains slid to the ground. The demon stepped forward, wings stretched wide enough to blot out the torchlight. Ah, free. You promised you'd serve me, Taran said. The demon's smile widened. I promised you what you wanted to hear. It gripped his throat, claws pricking the skin. I will do bad things to the land, and every mouth, I will fill every mouth with my name. And I will take your world. There's the summary. Taran gasped as the dark swallowed him. His last thought was that the demon's voice was still whispering, still promising, and part of him still wanted to believe. This is, Kit liked this one. Kit said smooth, very smooth. Mina said rule of 3 everywhere. That's a great observation. William says AI. Zenderfall says iron hissed AI. Isabel feels AI. This is an interesting one. This one seemed to me to lack some of the human tells, like the something that felt a little human compared to the last one. Here's the bad thing. So far, we've guessed human, AI, AI. Is this next one also going to be guessed as AI? They didn't say how many authors they got. So for all we know, there could only be 2 human stories here. That'd be a trip. This one had nothing standing out to me. I feel it's also like very self-contained, which I told you was one of my tells. That AI is really good at saying, okay, I have 350 words to work with. Here's the intro. Here's the twist. Here's the conclusion. Young Legend says, what if they were all AI? Where there's only one way to find out. I'm going to say... I think I'm going to say AI, but I don't know. I don't feel super strongly either way. And maybe that's an AI tell. Maybe that is... Maybe I hope to say that a human story would make me feel something. Even though that's really hard to do in 350 words, this story just felt to me, I think I'm going to go 1 star. This story felt to me very I guess plain. Maybe that's the better way to say it. It just felt very plain. Nothing about this stood out to me. The introduction of the character. Let's go up here. The village of Dreln. Now, here's another thing. Would AI be like, okay, I'm writing a fantasy story. Let's make up some, you know, some completely off-the-wall fantasy location. In fact, the real question is, if you Google the word Dreln, does that IP exist somewhere? Yeah, this was a pretty. William said something about the character introduction, and yeah, this kind of feels very bland. I'm gonna say I've already said AI, but AI. And I also rated this 1 out of 5. Which means, in my notes over here, we've guessed human, AI, AI, AI. Let's keep going. Let's find the human story. Something with a heart. I feel like I am barking up the wrong tree if with a flash fiction. Saying I want to find someone's 350-word story that's so poignant it sticks with me for days. All right, let's go to the next one. Story 5. The first time I saw the demon, it was leaning against the glass at the bus stop, idly licking the condensation as if tasting the air for secrets. No one else noticed. The city hurried past in wet coats and glowing headphones. Glowing headphones. You guys have a lot of headphones glowing? It wore a secondhand suit the color of overripe plums, its cuffs frayed, its tie loosened like an afterthought. Its eyes were the red of brake lights caught in the rain, the kind that linger in your vision long after you look away. Okay. We walked to the corner cafe. The demon ordered a flat white. Wait, buy me a coffee, it said. Sorry. Buy me a coffee, it said, and the request was not a request. We walked to the corner cafe. The demon ordered a flat white, stirred it 3 times clockwise, and drank half before speaking again. This actually feels human to me. This kind of like kind of random detail. That kind of feels human to me. I don't know. You are tired, it said. You are afraid. I can take one of those away. It smiled in a way that made the lights flicker above us. I thought about the months behind me, the sleepless nights, the rent overdue, the inbox like a swelling tide. I thought about the way my reflection had begun to look like someone else's face. What do you want? I asked. The demon traced a finger along the rim of its cup. A name, spoken aloud in the right place. That is all. I should have left. Instead, I asked, whose name? It touched me. The syllables rolled across the table like marbles. Impossible to hold on to, already slipping from my mind. My tongue ached to repeat them. When I spoke the name, the cafe windows fogged over. Outside, the rain stopped in midair, each drop quivering as if listening. The demon finished its coffee, left coins on the table, and stood. Thank you, it said. You will sleep tonight. I did. I woke to a city where the sirens did not sound, where the morning news showed an empty chair behind the president's desk. They got the president. That was the demon's plan the whole time, to take down the American government. And the air smelled faintly of plum skins and burnt sugar. On the street, people were whispering, each voice carrying a name I could not quite remember. This feels human. But why? We can't just say it feels human because it's less good. As I'm seeing some of these things in the chat. The callback to plums is good. We have that in here. AI wouldn't talk like that about the smell of plum skins and burnt sugar. I want to say human, but man, we're talking about subtleties that are mostly things that we feel, and it's so much harder to identify, you know? The syllables rolled across the table like marbles. Felt like a very unique thing to write, but what does that tell us? What does that mean, you know? I want to say human. I want to say human. I feel like this is something that this story started with a very clear image. The demon leaning up on the bus stop glass, and then just like kind of letting that story this feels like someone who pants their way through it, right? Someone who is like, I'm just gonna tell this one quick interaction. There's not some big twist. It's just, here's this cool opening image. Here's how we get our characters to the next place. Here's a callback. That feels like a human flash fiction to me. That's what I'm gonna go with. I feel more strongly about this than I've felt about some of the other ones. I believe this one to be human. And you know what? I liked it. because I given worst stories 3 stars, I'm gonna bump this one up to 4 stars. Even though when I think of like a scale of like giving this, 80% out of 100% grade, I don't know if it necessarily earns that, but it was definitely better than the other ones. So we said 4 out of 5 and human. I'm really interested to hear the results here. Find out it was AI. And what are you going to do then? That's what I'm saying. Story 6, let's go. Possession gets a bad rap among humans, though most don't pay much heed to the idea until it actually happens to them. Then it's all, my head's not supposed to turn 360. Wah, wah, wah. Not supposed to turn 360. Interesting to leave off the degrees. After a while, once they understood that complaining isn't getting them anywhere and we're going to carry on eating the baby regardless, many suddenly become armchair lawyers. This is my body, they say. You've got no right, they say. That repetition could go either way. My gut says human, my AI says it's trying to be stylistic. My gut, I said my AI. Oh, exposed. And even though we demons are chaotic bastards at the best of time, and even though possession is 9/10 of the law anyway, I do pay attention. You see, the thing is, they're almost right. A demon can only take possession of a body from the owner if they die. Zombies, ew. Can I get a zombies ew in the chat? Zombies, ew. Or if they purchase the body from them. And let me tell you, many humans have a very inflated opinion of their body's value. No, you're not swapping it for a date with Beyonce. However, most humans are not, in fact, owners. They're tenants. Some or other ancestor has come to a deal generations back, and perhaps they really did get a date with Helen of Troy or Rudolph Valentino out of it. Someone tell me who Rudolph Valentino is. And tenants can be evicted for all manner of reasons. Failing to pay the rent is the least of it. There's mistreatment of the property, vacant possession, illegal activity on site. Some bodies even have historical importance and can't be remodeled. If you're the descendant of someone with a famously large nose and you decide to have that chonk of a conch downsized, you could be violating your tenancy agreement. If your case isn't just that haircut, you've defaced the property. Mary told you look like an idiot, but you kept the mullet, and here we are writing cryptic shit on the walls in your own blood. All right, first thing I want to say, do not let the formatting sway you. Do not let the formatting sway you. An AI can be prompted to write with more poor grammar. That being said, the actual words, I don't know. I mean, Isabel says feeling very human. Zinderfall says references are way deep, but an AI knows that the common phrase possession is 9/10 of the law. An AI knows that. I think even I'm being swayed by the grammar and the errors maybe. God, could you just prompt an AI to write in a more amateur, quote unquote, style and get this? But here's the thing. I'm willing to say, you know what? This is human. It's stylized. It's witty. Let's hope it's human. But part of me is still like, I think that this could be done by AI. But I will vote human. I think that's a pretty safe vote, but I'll have reservations and I'm willing to be wrong. What do we think about the rating? I'd say a 3. Well, I'm not going into decimal points. I thought the ending was funny. I'll say it's witty. I'll say 4 out of 5. I'll say 4 out of 5. Four or 5. Kaylee, you like that one? It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I like the humor in it. If anything, maybe that's the biggest tell that it's written by a human. If you find it funny, I feel like that is right now something that AI just like could not do. Four out of 5. It's witty. I like the wordplay themes. 4 out of 5. Really good. All right. We'll call it 4 out of 5 in human. 2 more stories. Story 7. It was a damp Tuesday afternoon when Mr. Penrose discovered a demon perched upon his writing desk, tapping its clawed fingers on the wood as though composing a symphony of mischief. The creature was small, no taller than a teapot. What? Look at that chonky dash. You've heard of an M dash. Have you heard of a dash? Am I right? Look at that boy. Woo! But his eyes glimmered with an unsettling intelligence, the kind that made one feel both admired and mildly endangered. Good day, sir, the demon said, bowing so deeply its tail swept a pile of letters to the floor. Might I trouble you for a cup of tea? Mr. Penrose coughed into his sleeve. A cup of tea, he echoed. You, a demon, seek refreshments. Indeed, it said, smiling politely, and a biscuit, if you please. My contract states I must appear fearsome, but no one ever mentioned deprivation of snacks. It was difficult to reconcile the tiny horns and the wicked grin with the creature's evident fondness for Earl Grey. Mr. Penrose fetched a cup and with trembling hands offered the biscuit plate. The demon accepted them with all the ceremony of a visiting dignitary. Now, sir, it said, licking its fingers, I have a small request, rather urgent, I fear. You see, my superior, an irreputable demon of some repute, demands I locate a copy of Pride and Prejudice bound in green leather, and you, by sheer coincidence, possess one. Mr. Penrose blinked. My copy? The one on the shelf by the window? Yes, said the demon, balancing the biscuit on its nose for dramatic emphasis, an impressive feat. That seems like a strange choice, though ultimately disastrous when it toppled into his tea. Time is short, and failure carries, unpleasant consequences. Somehow, by the grace of improbability, or perhaps the peculiarities of demonic bureaucracy, Mr. Penrose produced the requested volume. The demon clutched it to its chest, gave a curt nod, and vanished in a swirl of smoke and a faint scent of burnt scones. This is the second time we've had something disappear, like a demon leaving with a smell of burnt something. Keep that in mind. Leaving Mr. Penrose to wonder whether the entire affair had been a figment of imagination or merely the most civilized encounter with hell he would ever endure. This one's an interesting one. Like we said here, this is the second story where a demon has left behind a smell of burnt sugar. Scones, burnt sugar. Is that just a trope? I mean, how many human authors are going to be like, I really got to include the smell left behind? Versus AI might be, according to all of these stories I've read, I don't know. I mean, it's trained on the same stuff, you know? Also, these are the biggest M dashes I've seen in my life. That's crazy. I love them. What are we thinking here? We got this and one more story. I'm thinking I think I want to say AI. I think I want to say AI because I feel like there are some decisions in this story that feel kind of like not. God, what's the right word? Very common. Just like general story details, but maybe less of a specific entry into this story. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. General is maybe what I'm trying to say. Like the idea of this demon being like, hey, I'm here, but I want snacks is kind of like a random kind of thing. Professor Aspen, hello, welcome. Mia says, it doesn't leave me with any impressions. I didn't find it funny, so I think AI. Whew, it's a tough one. I'm going to go AI on this one because I felt like there were just so many general things that if you were writing a story and you've committed to like being like, I'm going to write this story, you would choose more specific details. That is like when it's hard to pick up like some blatant tell that this is AI, you kind of have to dig deep for things like that. So I could be very clearly wrong, and I will own that. This is number 7, William. So we're about to tackle number 8. Story 7. So I voted AI. This is a tough one. We're really looking at subtle things here. I'll go 2 stars. I didn't love this one. Kind of bland to me. Now, I do want to say we are currently at, we've guessed human, AI, 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 human, human, AI. So out of our 7 stories, we've guessed 3 humans and 4 AI. How poetic would it be if this next story was human and we had 4 and 4? Just saying, we might be on the right track. I have, William, I have the notes from my guesses. But if you varied it at all, then unfortunately, I can't. It's tough to remember all these when they're all just titled story 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, story 8. Oh, Young Legend says it parlayed too well into the unintended consequences dialogue. Interesting. The scone into the coffee was too purposeful to be AI. That's an interesting thing. I had to scroll back to count. It's tough. We're on the last one, though, story 8. Let's do it. And then we get our answers. Story 8 starts. I'm disappointed. Richard focused on his 14-year-old daughter and noted the reactions of her 2 friends. Cindy had been Jessica's friend since kindergarten, and she looked properly rebuked. Every was new to Jessica's school this year and wore a supercilious smirk at his words. He ignored that for now. Jessica, you know the rules. Having friends for a sleepover doesn't change those rules. Now there's a mess to clean up, and it's not going to be easy. So I'm going to phone parents and ask them to pick up Cindy and Every. He spared the 2 guests a lingering look. Tears had sprung into Cindy's brown eyes. Every crossed her arms on her chest. This kind of felt a little awkward to me, so I'm going to phone parents and ask them to pick up Cindy and Every. But maybe it's just my interpretation of that. The new friend spoke coldly. Don't bother. I rode my bike. I can get myself home. She turned away. Richard cautioned her. It's dark out. She kept walking. He heard the door open and close. Her bike has a light, Cindy volunteered. Please, Mr. Chase, don't call my folks. They went to the movies. Date night. He drew a breath. You go upstairs then. Get to bed. Jessica and I have work to do. Cindy paused at the foot of the stairs and called back. I never believed in that stuff. If I thought it was real, I wouldn't have done it. I'm sorry. He heard the thunder of her fleeing steps up on the stairs. He sighed and gestured to the kitchen table. A thin trail of foul-smelling smoke was still rising from the Ouija board. He gestured at the scorched letters in the ruined planchette. That was your grandmother's. I thought you were old enough to respect such a gift. I'm sorry, Jessica spoke softly. Richard knelt and opened the cabinet and pulled out the hidden drawer. He spoke as he set tools on the table. Holy water, silver knife for me, silver knife for you, net of cold iron. I hope that's enough. A guttural laugh came through the basement door. Time to clean up, Richard said quietly. All right, so this is what I think is the first story that we've come across that doesn't introduce the concept of a demon until basically the very end. Everything else has been very in your face. Does that mean it's more likely human or more likely AI? Isabel says, this may be my favorite one yet, as someone who almost got in trouble when I was younger for DIYing a Ouija board with my friends. That's pretty good. Oh, to be a kid again. Oh, to be a kid. This one had... So here's the thing. You can say a guttural laugh. I saw this come up in the chat every now and then. A guttural laugh means like, oh, that's something that an AI would use, I feel like. And I think that's a fair assumption. But the AI would use that because it's been trained on a lot of other writing that used it. So, ergo, it's equally likely for a human to use it, right? Professor Aspen says, I feel like the thing that gave it away was my parents are going to the movies date night. It's really weird. Now, here's the question, Professor Aspen. Wait, no. You're not a doctor or a professor. Professor, here's the question. Does writing something in a more stilted way mean it's more likely to be human, or would an AI not make that mistake? Kaylee says the character voices are inconsistent. J Sam says, on the edge, I want to say human. I'm also on the edge. I thought William said AI. Young Legend said AI. This feels AI. All right. Story 8. I think this could go either way, and I think because of that, I'm willing to go AI. Also, I didn't think this one was that good. I'll go 2 stars. I like the ending better than I liked just about anything else in there. So 2 out of 5 and AI. All right, with all that being written down, here are our little notes. 2 stars and AI. All right. That is the last one here. I think all we have left now are the results. As a brief recap, we guessed the first story, which was about the river folk building a bridge and now demons can cross the water. We said that was human. Now that was a hard one because it was the first one we read. We didn't know what we were getting into. Story number 2. The warrior archangel and the crazy vulgar demon. We said AI, but consensus in the chat was human. But I said AI because it feels like the kind of thing you would get if you prompted to just be gross. That's also when my mother joined the chat. Shut up. Story 3, we said this was the priest fighting the demon. We said this one was AI. I also like this story. Story 4 was the guy releasing the demon. We said that was AI. Story 5, we said was human. This was the demon and the scones. Story 6 was the really witty, funny one. We said human. Story 7 was the demon at the writing desk. And story 8 was the kid using the Ouija board. All right. With all that being said, it is time to look at the results. I think the results are here. Before you look at this, make sure you do the test. Mark Lawrence says, a few things. I hate that AI can do this. Let me zoom in here for you. These authors write books, typically long series. Flash fiction is not their forte. And flash fiction is where AI does best. It starts to fall apart as the required works get longer. Some have questioned why flash fiction. Because you test things at a breaking point. If I'm interested in what it takes to smash a window, I don't throw 8 anvils at 8 windows and 8 ping pong balls at 8 windows and say, there you have it. Anvils are better than ping pong balls. Okay. All right. All right. Here we go. The contributing authors have sold around 15 million books between them. Whoa! I thought these were like self-published people. Number 1 in here was Robin Hobb. Realm of the Elderlings. Fitz. That's crazy. That's huge. Janie Wirtz. I don't think I'm familiar with Janie Wirtz. Let's go see who Janie Wirtz is. Who's Janie? Janie Wirtz. War of Light and Shadow. Where's their... Wars of Light and Shadow. Cycle of Fire. Haven't heard of Janie Wirtz, but prolific. Prolific. Uh-oh. Kit says, oh, my analysis has been changed. Christian Cameron. Not familiar with or Miles Cameron. Oh, and Mark Lawrence. No spoilers. No spoilers. Isabel. All right. So here we go. Story 1 was voted mostly AI. But in truth, it was Janie Wirtz. Which we had said human. We got that one right. Let's go. Story number 2 was voted mostly human and was human. We got that one wrong. This was the should have put some notes down. Story number 3, split decision, was AI. We got that one. That was the fight between, I think it was the fight between the demon and the priest. I think. Story 4, consensus was human, answer was AI. We got that one right. I think the only one we've gotten wrong so far has been this one. I'll put a little star here. Got that one wrong. Story number 5, AI. We guessed human, and it was our favorite one. Now, the next one is the one that we were like, oh, this is really funny. Only a human could do this one. Mark Lawrence. Human. And you know what? Maybe that's the biggest tell right now. References and comedy. And our last 2 were AI and human. So we got story 5 wrong. And we got story 8 wrong. Very interesting. All right, so findings. What do you think about these findings? Based on those, you were able to go through and read these stories or hear them read. I know it's also a little different to hear me interpret the story. Maybe you would interpret in a different way and it would make you feel a different way about it. How do we feel about this? Story 8 felt bad. Flash fiction, it's a different beast. I asked a new session of ChatGPT to guess which ones were AI. And it also did not do a good job either. Lots of false positives. That's interesting. I don't know what to take from that, but that's interesting. Not only was the highest rated story an AI one, but they scored higher on average too. I asked authors to do the test themselves. Only one has got back to me at the time of posting. That author made 5 guesses, 4 of which were wrong, and listed their top 2 stories as 2 AI generated ones. Aspen says, like, there was practically nothing going for it until the end where the demon was starting to be summoned. It seemed like it needs more than one chapter. That could be a classic Robin Hobb move, if you're talking about the last one. The names made me think AI for the last one. Yeah. Every, I think, was one of them. All right. So what are the findings? In terms of enjoyment, in this test, the AI won. And now I do agree with Mark Lawrence that longer works are still kind of out of the realm of possibility for AI to really do a great job with it, but flash fiction is going to be the easiest thing for it to do. Can AI generate a better book than Robin Hobb can write? Absolutely not. Might it one day generate a book that would do better than one of hers in terms of sales and public acclaim? Now it seems like a possibility. Will I ever read AI fiction for pleasure? No. To quote someone wise, if nobody could be bothered to write this, why should I bother to read it? That's a great quote. That's a great one. What else we got here? Kind of an interesting experiment. Mark Lawrence does, like one or two kind of yearly interesting things that I think should be celebrated in the writing space. Mostly because when we have people who care about writing as much as this, we should want to support that. So for everyone who joined in, thank you for supporting that. I don't plan on running any sort of experiments like this myself, so it's cool that someone else was able to put it together. I've seen videos on YouTube of other people doing like human and AI comparisons. And at this point, I think we all kind of know. We know what's happening and it can't be stopped. And so like now to me, it's just more of a tired concept. So I'm much more excited to just explore more writing stuff. And I hope you can come with me as we do cool writing things. I have some super ambitious videos currently being edited. They probably won't come out for another month or two. But I have been doing some, I've been doing some more stuff behind the scenes and I'm really excited to share it with you. Also, Upon Careless Gray Hills may be announced for pre-order in the next couple months. And that's also really exciting. That book goes off to the editor before too long. And that's both fun and terrifying. One of the things that I'm really trying to do, especially after I get this next book published and doing all of its stuff, sending it out in the world, I think we're going to do a lot more output focused things. You learn so much by finishing something. So maybe next year is going to be all about writing short stories and starting things and finishing things, all this kind of stuff. Kaylee says, I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes. That's a good one. That's a good one. I love doing these live streams. Thanks for hanging out with me. You could be doing anything you want at this time and you chose to tune in, and that means a lot. I really appreciate that. I'm looking forward to November. I'll get you more details the closer we get there. I'll be working hard, and I really hope to have you there with me writing some really cool things. Kayla says, I'm looking forward to your next book. Oh, that's so kind. It's not a genre I typically read, but it's from you and it's set where I grew up. Oh, shout out Alaska. What I'm hoping, I understand, like, I'm also very much a sci-fi fantasy person. I go out of my way to read different, like, right now I'm reading Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. I go out of my genre to read specific books, and sometimes I find my favorite books of all time outside the genre I typically read. I hope that if you pick up this book, you can enjoy it, but then also with the kind of behind the scenes stuff that we get to talk about following that book, it's also kind of like this open, I guess I shouldn't say open book, but if you went through this with my last book, after putting it out, about a month later, we had a live stream that was very much like, here's what I felt like I did right. Here's what I felt like I could have improved on. Here's what I felt like I did wrong, and kind of a retrospective. And I feel like that's a really beneficial conversation for everyone to have. It kind of helps you grow, whether it's your work, whether it's someone else's work. So I'm bringing you along no matter where I go. And I think that's fun. Thank you for tuning in and doing a lot of reading. If you're not part of the Discord, check out the link below. And of course, Starlight Farms Kennel for Talking Dogs is down there as well. But I think everyone here is already familiar with my spiel. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of the night. I look forward to seeing you in the next live stream and sharing some super cool videos with you in the near